Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Jonathan Dalton. I'm a psychologist here in Maryland near DC. I treat anxiety disorders almost exclusively, but my real specialty is working with kids and teens whose anxiety prevents them from going to school, which is a phenomenon known as school refusal. You know, I always joke with parents when I first meet them that if you have a kid who's smart, creative, and compassionate, the universe will throw in anxiety for free. And I'm only half joking when I say that, because the kids that I work with are wonderful kids who come from great families who also happen to have very intense reactions in their nervous system to things that ordinarily would not cause a lot of distress in their peers. Now, evolution has taught us to avoid things that make us sick, hurt, or scared. That's exactly what we're supposed to do if something is making us feel that way, is to avoid that thing. However, when it comes to problems attending school, we know that avoidance and fear become teammates. What happens is that they're having exactly the right response at exactly the wrong time. While their fear is real, the danger is not, but their bodies can't tell the difference any more than you can tell the difference if you burnt your toast or if the curtains are on fire based on the sound of your fire alarm. So the fire alarm can sound really scary even in the absence of any danger, and that's exactly what happens inside these kids and teens. Now, what happens then is that they avoid as a way to cope, but the avoidance short-circuits the entire process of learning that while their fear was real, the danger never was. So in reality, we don't treat anxiety, we treat avoidance. We help people to decrease their avoidance, and if we can do that effectively, then the anxiety will diminish naturally on its own. In the same way that if you get in cool water, your goosebumps will go away even if you do nothing to try and facilitate that process. So what our goal is to educate kids and their families about how to think differently about their alarm, to see their anxiety alarm accurately for being a really intense but annoying false alarm that gives them no useful information. We teach kids how to be their own coach, how to remind them that courage is what you do, it's not what you feel, that courage itself demands fear and anxiety to be present, that we can actually overrule the urge to avoid. We can acknowledge the urge and we can choose a different path. We can deal with the anxiety the way that we deal with a wave in the ocean when we have an urge to run to shore. We can instead stand our ground and dive into the wave and come out the other side. We lean into our anxiety and we outlast it. We deal with anxiety the way that a palm tree deals with the wind. It just simply outlasts it because it knows that anxiety is two things. It's temporary and harmless, but avoidance can really ruin lives. And so what we do is we give the kids the education how to think differently about their own anxiety, to understand what the anxiety means, but more importantly, what the anxiety does not mean. And then we go on offense against the anxiety. We realize that kids who can't go to school, it's very similar to a child who eats a casserole and breaks out into hives. It's not the casserole they're allergic to, but rather one of the ingredients. And we need to know which one. So school refusal is a symptom, not a diagnosis. And it's a symptom usually of another anxiety disorder, such as separation anxiety, which counts for about 38% of cases, followed by social anxiety disorder, and then down the line with the other anxiety disorders. So when we go on offense, we have to know exactly which anxiety we're trying to work at. So our goal is rapid reintegration back into school. We always say that a lot of kids come in and say, well, let's get rid of the anxiety and then we can go back to school. And I say that's like saying, I would love to go to the gym, but I want to get in shape first. We know that the act of confronting the anxiety in the school setting is a process, a very integral process of the treatment. It's not the outcome of treatment. So we help kids, again, to think differently about their own thoughts, to think differently about their anxiety, to understand what the anxiety means, what it doesn't mean, how to lean into it, how to be their own coach, and how to fundamentally outlast the anxiety by using non-avoidant coping skills. We find that the vast majority of kids can get back in very, very quickly if given the right kind of treatment, but the treatment does need to be evidence-based and it does need to have exposure therapy as a cornerstone of the actual process. And exposure therapy, just very briefly, is that process of going on offense. It's about seeking out and leaning into the anxiety to develop more tolerance for it over time. So I love my job. I get the front row to seeing kids and their families to think differently, to observe themselves doing things they didn't think they could do. I see courage on a daily basis, so I'm honored to have the privilege of working with the families and the kids that I work with, and I sincerely hope this little video was helpful for you. Thank you.